All right, so it'll probably be, there has been live streamed. Okay,
Ask
that's
for my
great.
approval. So there we go. Okay.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Now, there's nobody watching it, Mark, because nobody
Oh,
has the link.
oh well. I'm used to having nobody pay attention to me.
Okay, I, I got to, I got to, now how do you turn the volume down on that? Yeah, yeah, no different than usual.
No.
Copy. So, right, I've switched that off there. So what I got to do now is announce on Facebook. Right, and then we're nearly ready to go. Um, so just 1 2 1 2. What? Button for it. So good evening, welcome one and all to a very convoluted, confused, and challenged start to Poetry in Motion Ireland. Welcome back. If you've been someone who's watched it before, if you've never watched it before, what's it all about? Alfie is what I'm tempted to say. With me tonight, at the moment, perhaps we'll get some more joinees, as it were, on Zoom and also on YouTube, is Mark J. Mitchell. Good evening, Mark. How are
Hello
things with
there.
you this evening?
Well, all right, all right. Been productive and um, writing lots of bits of poems and publishing. I actually just counted in the last month. I've had 34 poems accepted for publication. So
34.
yeah,
That's more than one a day.
well, yeah, but I'm aiming to have 1,100 accepted for publication by the end of the year.
That's not in 1 year. That's
No,
overall.
no, that's for lifetime.
All right. Okay.
But I'm getting there. I'm within like 15 poems of that goal.
Wow.
Um,
Wow. You're
you
nearly
know,
there. It's a
yeah,
done. It's a done deal, for goodness sake.
that and as I said, been writing for various occasions and things that came up, and just sometimes words just come up. And, I mean, I bought a new pair of shoes. I bought it online. Um, and so I mean, I know my shoe size. I know, so, um, and then I wrote a very strange poem about buying a pair of shoes and having it delivered. Uh,
A pair of
um,
shoes and what?
and having it delivered. Um,
All
but
right. Okay.
somehow they're threatening in the poem. Uh, I don't know why. That's just it's that the line comes, just take you go where it leads you. That's
Yeah, absolutely.
uh, that,
That's
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 how
how
I
your
work.
that's how your poems have worked and worked so well. Take you
Yeah.
in a tangent,
Uh,
tangentially, all that knowledge you've stored up suddenly comes bursting out.
yeah. Well, I did actually did since there's I'm not competing with time for other poets. I had an interesting little set here. I mean, over the last couple of days, as you may have heard, something happened with the Rolling Stones over the weekend, over the
Yeah,
last week.
yeah.
And so because of that, I was watching a lot of Rolling Stones videos, and just to look for a Charlie thing and like that. And I also have a Beatles poem here, so I have a Beatles and Stones poem, a Beatles poem and a Stones poem.
Oh, you can't have one without the other.
Well, yeah. I always thought, both bands were at their best when they were competing with each other.
I read it. Funny, just before you go there, I read the story recently. That actually they were less in competition. They were very friendly, and it was just a device by the record companies to make them seem as if they were fighting with each other. But sure, they shared records. The Stones took a couple of Beatles tunes to start off with, didn't they?
Well, the famous story is that the Stones were at a nightclub with the Beatles, and Mick and Keith are going, "Well, how do you guys write songs so like that? I don't understand how you write songs." So they went over to the corner of the club, John and Paul, and came back and said, "Okay, here you go," and presented them with "I Want to Be Your Man." And it took like 5 minutes. And that's when Mick and Keith thought, it only takes 5 minutes. We can do it. And that's when they started writing songs. It can't be that hard. Look how long it took. But part of the reason,
yeah, just at the top of your head, yeah. It's like you and writing your poetry.
No, part of the reason is, I mean, especially for the Beatles, they'd spent 3 years playing together, playing live, and they knew the rock and roll catalog, and they knew what a rock and roll song was supposed to be like, and that's the training you get. But let me give you the Beatles poem first, because it's shorter and cheerful, and the Stones poem, of course, is longer and not so cheerful. But the Beatles poem goes to on my birthday. My birthday was last month, and it was it's also an anniversary for Joni and me. Hello, what happened there? Okay. And I wanted to, you have the problem of how do you write a love poem for a person you've written a ton of love poems for and that you've been in love with for a long time. So this is the hand medley. Let us sing of hands, hers and yours, as those four sang so many nights before. Let us sing days in their lives, recalled by small scars, time's signature. Sing where they help the everywhere diamond skies shine on the two of you. Sing how her hands held today's news, folded away so you won't see. Sing the revolving moons her touch bestowed yesterday and caressed away today. Let us sing, she and you, things you still say today, each to each when time wants to hold your hand.
Clever stuff. Mixture of the lyrics and some of the ideas and the concepts there, right? Yeah. Can we name? Do you want us to name all the songs?
Well, they're pretty out there. That's how.
Pretty obvious and worth worth thing. So that's the melodic, relatively easily accessible, non-threatening situation of the Beatles. So how does the Stones poem square up to that?
The Stones is long. It's a 3-part poem. And one of the things I watched was Rolling Stones Rock and Roll Circus, or parts of it. And they were debuting the songs from Beggar's Banquet. So these were songs that nobody had seen before or heard before. And they do, you can't always get what you want. And there are 3 girls in the front row who couldn't be more than 14. And this is about one of them. And it's called You Can't Always Get, Part 1 in 1968. And imagine this is in a low class but not Cockney London accent.
But it's not Middle Ages Geoffrey Chaucer Middle English. No,
low class, not Cockney London accent, and young woman, or actually about a 32-year-old woman. Mandy was a Keith, and I'm still a Mick. Small hand Ann like the Beatles. Her dad's car got us around. She'd take Brian, drove stick, so we let her drive for us. We all sent cards, loads and loads of them. We made Annie lick the stamps we nicked from our mom's bags. Not hard to do. We'd get to the circus. The stars said so. Then they called. It wasn't a trick. Mandy'd meet her Keith and I'd marry Mick. Small Ann played the Beatles in her dad's car. This was years ago. We were just 14. Annie was 15 but didn't look it. We were pains at school, and the three of us screamed in our tiny rooms. My mom shouted, "Shut it," all afternoon, but we didn't. I mean, we were kids, and we'd won our dream tickets. If it goes on telly, the peelers might see us. Ages ago, when we were 14 and 15, and not one of us looked it.
Which was a bit of an adventure there to be concocted and based on, if not your own experience, based on truth, because they had the groupies of all ages, didn't they? The kids screaming to the.
Yeah, and I'm not sure they're winning a contest to be the ones go there because it was an invited audience. I don't know that there was a contest.
Yeah.
But it made sense to me that would be how they'd wind up there because these three girls were in the front row. When Mick sang, "You Can't Always Get What You Want" on stage for the first time.
Right, yeah.
And
it's
so,
one of my
again,
favorites too. I love it.
Part two, "What You Need," in 1968. We were at the circus down front. There was John and Yoko behind us. We're covered in plastic, us three. The song, I don't know, not playing on our tiny radios, not yet. Mick leaned down really low during his circus down front, not to John or Yoko, but right to me. He hovered, almost flew. You can't always get the man you want. Looking at my 14-year-old face, that show, there was a long show, and he sang that song to me. I know. 3 times he sprang up and then turned back to me. My ears rang, and I knew I won't ever get the man I want. Him, that night, in that perfect place.
Cool.
You ever see that video? He comes down to the edge of the stage, leans in, and sings those words straight at this 14-year-old girl, and turns away and turns back to her. And so this is what captivated me.
Yeah, you thought you'd write the inside story to it.
Well, and then here she is a little later on. And this is If You Try Sometimes, and it's 1986. And there are 2 voices here. I'll ask once more, put out your cigarette. Good. Plastic. Why? I don't know. Art, maybe? Yoko said she didn't want to get wet during the big Salt of the Earth finish. I was 14. The Stones, Mick and Keith. Your life now? Changed, knackered, done. Mandy died. Not then, years on, driving in some posh car with Oxbridge mates post-exam. I knew I'd be trapped with the salt of the earth, finished before men began. I'd been burned by Mick's star. Icarus? What? Too close to the sun? Myth, don't mind. And she married really well, dumped in, stood Tory MP, Portsmouth, staving off the salt of the earth, finished with gobs of cash on her highway to hell. Now you. I sin through London, still do, just can't sit still, never missed a Stone show, never met Mick's eyes again, came to you, heard you help us salt of the earth finish it all. Just give me the pills, Mick won't know.
A different world. There goes the girls. the girl's kind of experience of I don't know, whatever.
I mean,
I
it
just
was,
think,
no matter what it would be, just watching it, you go, this is obviously a key moment in this young woman's life. I didn't know she was going to wind up, going to a psychiatrist and getting pills, but that's what happened. Oh, look, somebody's joining us.
yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing you put the word out there.
Uh-huh.
So a trilogy of poems for Rolling Stones and just one for the Beatles. I feel left out.
Well, yeah.
But it's your poem.
Uh,
It's your poem. Thank you. Let's see who else do we have in the room. Oh, look, there's Ala. Can we hear you, Ala?
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello there. How are
Hi
you
there.
doing? And Lucy. Good evening, Lucy.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, we're
There
good.
she is. Okay.
Nice to hear you.
How's
Oh,
everybody?
good. Nice to see you too. A bit confusing. There's two of me in the room tonight, but only one speaking. Listen, you don't want to know the logistics of this. And we're on YouTube tonight to really confuse us, but it's a long story. So welcome. Mark and I have been talking. You missed a couple of or three poems there about the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. We're not going to ask you to vote on which was the best because that would be divisive, and we'd never be that. Now, I did want to start with this poem officially, even though there's no official, because it's another new beginning for us tonight. And I quoted a little bit of this on the kind of the preamble. So we'll give you it now, and then we'll move on to do some other things. And thank you, Mark. I like that that idea of, it's not just one poem and then leave it, that you've got two or three, all from the one inspiration. It's amazing. And that's what you can do, isn't it? Especially something like that. You can take so many different perspectives on the same story. You could probably write a story from behind the drums from Charlie Watt if you chose to.
Yeah, I don't have a backbeat.
Okay. The backbeat, you can't lose it, as they say. From John O'Donoghue, this is for a new beginning. And it just spoke to me because I had one of those summers. I couldn't call it a summer at all. It was so flat. I'll not go much further on, but just to say, this one spoke to me for a new beginning. In out of the way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you are ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the grey promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered, would you always live like this? Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning. This is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you. I don't know if you folks can digest that on the first listen, but that spoke so volumes to me in the last 4 or 5 days. I'm glad to say. So new beginnings for whatever reason. It's not that I've got divorced from my last girlfriend. That happened a long time ago. But just some new beginning, new sprouts seem to come and go. So it's good. I found it very, very reflective. I could have told you all that was my own poem. I don't think I would have fooled you on that. I wouldn't have got it away. Lucy, you say, already knew whose poem it was or whatever. So good evening to you. Mark and I have been finding out what we've been up to in the summer. Mark is out and about. And if you've got a healthy employer who needs a poet in residence who happens to live in San Francisco who can write your poetry, Mark is up for the job. Ala, what have you been up to? It's over a month since we spoke. How have things been going with you?
Well, fine. But you're talking about a flat summer, and as Mark knows, well, especially where I live, which is on the west side of Twin Peaks, close to the Pacific Ocean, August is chilly, gray, foggy, flat, all
August.
those things. But so it really doesn't feel, we talk about autumn and it's the difference between, to me, the summer comes in September, October in San Francisco, because usually the fog drifts away and we get some sunny days. And unfortunately, we've also had a lot of wildfires in Northern California. And so on top of the fog is smoke, not so bad in San Francisco, but where my daughter lives in the Oakland Hills, there are some days that have been just terrible. You have to stay inside. So new beginnings, not yet. I'm waiting. When I was teaching, it always used to irritate me that we used to start school the day after Labor Day. And so that would be in September. And so that means we'd sit through a gray, foggy August. September would start when it was beautiful weather. We'd have to go back to work. But otherwise, fine. I've gotten a lot of good feedback on my book. So that's made me happy. Otherwise, very, very quiet. My granddaughter has gone back to school, in school, learning with, she is vaccinated, but with masks, and everybody in her school and the teachers and the staff and everyone is wearing masks, but it does worry me. I can't say it doesn't, it does. Otherwise, things are good.
And what about poetry? Have you written anything or much since the summer?
I started to write a first chapter of a story based on my mother's life, which has been one of the things I've always wanted to do. And poetry, not so much. I've written a lot of haikus. That seems to just flow. But I got involved in writing that first chapter. And as usual, after I wrote the first chapter, and I thought about what the rest would entail, I stopped. I don't know if stopped permanently, stopped briefly, I'm not sure.
Well,
so that's the writing I've been doing.
Here's the chapter 2. But I'm sure you have a few poems picked out for us this evening, or hopefully you have.
A few.
Good.
A few of mine that I don't think I read. I may have. I may have and forgotten that I did. But I do have a few picked out, yes.
Oh, we're waiting for one of them at least.
Oh, well, I thought if we're going to do this, and you said autumn, we might as well start with a classic. Well, I might as well start with a classic since I live in the 19th century anyhow. So I thought I would read the first, and I won't read the whole thing because it's rather long, but the first and fifth canto of Ode to the West Wing by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Whenever I think of autumn, this is the first poem that comes to my mind. Ode to the West Wing. O wild west wing, thou breath of autumn's being, Thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing, yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilent driven multitudes. O thou whose chariot to thy dark wintry bed the winged seeds where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow her chariot over the dreaming earth and fill, driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air, with living hues and odors, plain and hill, wild spirit, which art moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, hear, oh hear. And this is his last, the fifth canto, where he turns the poem and brings himself as the poet into the poem. Make me thy lyre, even as the forest is. What if my leaves are falling like its own? The tumult of thy mighty harmonies will take from both a deep autumnal tone, sweet though in sadness. Be thou, spirit fierce, my spirit. Be thou me, impetuous one. Drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth. And by the incantation of this verse, scatter from an unextinguished hearth ashes and sparks. My words among mankind be through thy lips to unawakened earth. The trumpet of a prophecy, O wind, if winter comes, can spring be far behind?
Yeah, good. I have vague memories of hearing that many autumns ago.
Only he could swim.
Yeah, just that first stanza to me is just so brilliant. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter fleeing. I mean, that's marvelous. That is brilliant.
But the end too, where he brings himself in and becomes the instrument of the wind, and then the words you're hearing become the prophecy. Not short on ego, our boy Percy Shelley.
No.
That's fine with me. I was been thinking about this because I still have my Signet Classics Shelley, edited by Harold Bloom. It cost 95 cents, which a paperback. Still have that one with me with my handwritten notes in it, but I never took a class on it. And where would I be without the Signet Classics and the Mentor editions, these inexpensive paperbacks of classics that I was able to buy for $1 with my allowance, as for my education, that I wasn't getting in school. I was getting bits and pieces. I remember I still cherish the high school graduation present one of my still dearest friends gave me, which was a complete poems of D.H. Lawrence, which I just could not afford because it cost $4.50. And I still keep that handy. And I let my friend know that, it is one of the books I keep going back to still after all these years. But I think about those because I don't see them anywhere. Any equivalent of them, like a $5 paperback book that you can put in your pocket and carry with you and read to a girl, ideally. Well, in my case,
I did.
And the sad part is that in the zeal of the 1970s, because I noticed, Mark, you've been noting, the dead white males.
Yes.
In the zeal of the 1970s, yes, the curriculum needed, and I'm talking about the English literature curriculum, did need to be reviewed and so on. But what happened was that the dead white males, that's what they became, the classic poets, that's what they were named. And what happened is they disappeared from our literature texts, and only things that were relevant, which meant excerpts from this and that, and just little flotsam and jetsam became part of the English curriculum, to the point where Shakespeare was gone. Not only Shelley and Byron and so on, but Shakespeare and Poe and Nathaniel Hawthorne and all the Walt Whitman, all the great classic poets and writers disappeared from the textbook. Now, since I had already been teaching at that point for a very long time, I was issued a whole new set of literature texts. And I took one look at them and I was aghast. And so, but it was, you had to have a set of these books in your classroom. Now, I never used them. I had a set of the new books and I put them on the table in the front of my classroom, so that when the vice principal walked in, at one point we were reading The Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Okay, we were in the 1800s and Walt Whitman and Mark Twain. And the vice principal walked in and he came up to the lectern, and I was sitting at the lectern with a text, and my kids had their old textbooks, which I kept. I kept a set and I used them. And he looked at this book and he said to me, Arlene, he said, this book was published in, the textbook you're using was published in 1960. He said, where's the new set of text-date textbooks? Don't you have them? And I went, yes, here they are. I've got a set of the brand new textbooks. Here they are. And I said to him, I wouldn't worry about the fact that this textbook was published in 1960 because Mark Twain wrote in the 1860s. And he was stunned because he didn't know anything about English literature. But it's we always go overboard. And as a teacher in the San Francisco School District, I saw so many waves and fads of things that robbed my student, would have, because I never went along with it and nobody said anything to me because I had too much tenure. But it robbed the students of just being introduced to Shakespeare and to the great poets and to the dead white males. Just being introduced to them was so important. And it disappeared. And I was so grateful that my own high school education, the teacher who was, by the way, Irish, Elizabeth C. Murphy, who was a mentor to me in high school, that's what she taught. She taught the classics. She was the first one to get me to read Shakespeare. So it's a shame that that's not there anymore. I asked my granddaughter, because I had posted something about Hamlet, And I asked my granddaughter, who's in the 8th grade now, which is American literature. But anyway, I said, she said to me, "Oh, you really like that?" I said, "Yes." She said, "I'm going to ask my English teacher." And she asked her English teacher. And of course, they're not. She was reading Wuthering Heights. Okay, she's 13 years old, and the teacher said to her, "Are you reading that book?" She said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Well, we're not going to be reading anything that difficult in this class this year." And she said, "Well, are we going to do any Shakespeare?" And he said, "No, but I have a copy of Midsummer Night's Dream. I'll give it to you. You know, so you can read it on your own." And that's where the students are. Read it on your own. And if you're lucky to have a teacher who is going to give you some enrichment, then you're lucky. Okay, I've talked too much. Sorry, I get on that. It was very frustrating for me at the end of my career to see what happened to the English curriculum in California.
I can still give you Ozymandias from memory.
Yeah, you can
Yep.
share it with us later, Mark. Lucy, not sure of your experience of learning poetry or hearing poetry at school. So you just briefly, what are your memories of that? You know, poetry at school, what it meant. I mean, certainly my own experience is very different from what you're saying is in the American system.
Well, now that you say it, I actually came across this book when I was down in my mum's house just a couple of weeks ago, and this is actually the book that I used when I was studying for my leaving cert in school. And it's covered in notes and stuff. So yeah, I suppose my memory of doing poetry in school, I suppose in secondary school, sometimes I would struggle with it in terms of we'd be given a poem to interpret the meaning of. And I think quite often in poetry, there's more than one interpretation to a poem. And I think it was one thing that I didn't feel very confident speaking out about in class, because you'd be asked, what did you think the poem meant? And I would have to think about it and I'd come up with my interpretation of it, but it wouldn't necessarily be the textbook interpretation. And I often found that I'd be afraid to give my opinion on it because my opinion would be different to what we've been taught that it was. So yeah, so it wasn't maybe the most positive thing for me in school. I liked it when I was younger and I was learning how to write it, but interpreting it was something that, yeah, I don't have great memories of for that reason. But I've come to love it now and to trust my own interpretation of poems. So,
what poems have you brought with us with you tonight that you can we can all have a joint interpretation? Everyone completely different.
Okay, I'm kind of ill prepared, but I do have some that I dug out. There's one here, and it's Yeats, and it's just called September 1913. Yet could we turn the years again to call those exiles as they were, in all their loneliness and pain, you'd cry, some woman's yellow hair has maddened every woman's son. They weighed so lightly what they gave, but let them be, they're dead and gone, they're with O'Leary in the grave. That's it.
And there was a semi-political reference in that. O'Leary was a famous not poet, but a famous political voice in America, wasn't he? He was an American, Irish American, and they referred back to him. I can't remember the exact political references, but he was certainly based in Irish America, and he was regarded as being, you know, the leader for a while in thought, as it were, in Irish, if you like, republicanism for a while. So
Ever.
he was kind of challenging that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he also couldn't leave out Maud Gonne's hair.
No, but of course. But as you know, Mark, he passed away. He's now gone, but not forgotten. Deary me.
Horseman
It
passed
was-
by.
Yeah, it says here that O'Leary was John O'Leary, and hang on. Oh, I'd lost it now. I'd lost it. Yeah, I didn't do my homework on this. I told Jamie I was ill prepared. I forgot this was on.
You can come back to it. Let's say hello to Philomena, who's joined us. Nice to see you back, Philomena. Bringing in, you missed all the poetry about the Liverpool lads early. Mark had a poem about the Beatles. You would have enjoyed that. But good evening to you. And how's your summer away been?
Oh, brilliant. Great. We went to Scotland, just back from Anglesey, always out and about. Too much to do actually, in the garden all day. And I don't know about everyone else. I seem to spend my life just, I'll get rid of this, I'll get rid of that. And yet, the more I get rid of, the more seems to be here.
Well, they say it's a bit like the vacuum, isn't it? When you take something out, more seems to come in behind it. Yeah, what can you do?
Yeah, and not much time. Not much time for writing this last few weeks actually. But it's always there. It's always at the back, in the background. Been doing some artwork. That little angel I put up. The past.
Yeah, that was lovely. I saw that. I saw it. Lovely post.
I love the art and the angels. So I'm gonna concentrate a bit more on that. Yeah.
So have you any poems for us this evening, whether they're your own or elsewhere?
Do you know, I did write one. Strangely enough, I could. Do you know, this last week I haven't been able to sleep, and I woke up about 3, and I started to think about a cat, this lovely cat that when we came to Liverpool years ago, I got this little cat off a friend. Oh God, I love that wee cat, and it came into my head, and that was over 40 years ago, and lots of other things come into my head then as well.
You're not the first person on the call tonight who's had a dream and a poem about a dream. I think Mark mentioned one earlier on, didn't you, Mark?
Right.
So,
I was actually sorry. Go on, Mark.
No. Just it's the season for poetry about dreams.
I was actually awake when, in the early hours, reading a trilogy, the O'Neill trilogy. The first one was about the Irish who got captured and went to Jamaica. And this one's about, God, I've learned so much from this one. It's about the Rising in 1920. And I didn't realise that there was so much inter-rivalry.
Oh, it was a horrible time in Irish history.
Pro and anti. And brother against
brother.
Really,
There have been a number of movies about it. I don't know if you've seen the what's his name? The young Killian. What's Killian's name? Irish actor of the last 5-10 years, been quite strong, maybe 15. And Killian is one of the parts in The Wind That Shook the Barley. Very powerful story, a recreation of that time when the Black and Tans were around, and more sadly when brothers were fighting against brother. You know, it was a real civil war, worse than any of the 1916 violence had been about. It's amazing how dark a part of Irish history it is. Really sad.
Yeah, my only sort of inkling of that would be a bit like Brexit, when I wanted to stay in and Raymond wanted to go out to get out, and we literally didn't. In the end, we couldn't speak to each other about it. We were so fired up about it, and that was nothing in comparison to there were so many guns in Ireland at the time, and they were actually shooting each other, cousins and friends, and wow, it's just shows you how ignorant I am about it all. Oh, I've Have we lost Donna or have I gone?
No, you're here.
You're here, he's here, and then there's an extra Donna.
I'd switch the mute button off. The truth would tell you that some people will say that the politics and the hatred and the separation still exists in the Irish political models of the present day, with the two parties left and right, and there's still, some would say, still fighting civil war politics. So
Yeah, definitely. It's too deep rooted to just, chop away overnight. Far too deep rooted. But anyway, back to the cat. If you want to hear it, it's just on my phone. Not prepared at all tonight. In fact, it took me ages getting your link and transferring it to Raymond's email. Something I used to do weeks ago, just like that. I had to think, what am I doing? What am I on? So this is it. A memory from Dawn. Dear Cat, I needed you back then when you came into my life like an angel. And this is the rest of the poem. The cat and this and that. In the wee small hours last night, she would recall good and bad times. Twinned on her journey, part of her story, not always easy. She owned it back then. And her new life, thinking back over the decades to the cat, and this and that. Invoking memories of more than just the cat on the wall. Waiting patiently for her return. Following her when she left the flat. Always on the doctor's wall, the cat would squat, awaiting her return. The girl was 24, a young wife and mum. 1,000,000 miles and thousands more away from home. She made friends easily at the school gate, where she couldn't wait to meet the cat. With her friend, she walked along the streets of Liverpool, streets as strange as her new life, to pick up the cat from her friend's mum's home. That's when it hit her, how much she missed Ireland. That kind of normality, a notion away from the ebb and flow of a pot of tea. Her mother's way of showing love with apple tart and soda bread from Dorothy's. The world seemed lonely, a huge loneliness, when the woman who brought you into it wasn't there to share, and you were now that woman, the protector, like the cat. She loved that cat, and when they moved to a bigger, better flat, it kicked and screamed, went out one night, and that was that. Isn't it funny how when you think of one thing, you go off into a million tangents?
Yeah, I think we had that discussion earlier on too with Mark. A word sets him off and thinking, and all of a sudden he produces a poem from whatever source and whatever reason. Thank you.
It wasn't very academic or very prosaic or whatever the word is. It was just written roughly.
We're not here to judge.
Yes, we are.
Okay, yeah, Mark. Votes out of 10 on the usual scale.
Oh no! Please don't grade me on that one, Mark. That one was more about the cat from the heart.
I'm just teasing.
So
No, you'd be right. You'd be right if you said that.
Teases with another poem. I've got another good one about beginnings as well.
Well, okay. I've got and Philomena brought up a couple of topics. I got another music one. It's about Billie Holiday. I have an angel here. I also have a cleaning house one. The memory. So as well as a tribute to a Italian poet. So any
Billie Holiday's nickname was what? It's something around the word angel.
No, Lady Day.
Oh, Lady Day. She was known as Lady Day. Of course,
yeah.
They made the movie with Diana Ross playing the part.
Yeah. Well, there's a new biopic out that I have not seen yet because it looks so much like they're going to try and make her Saint Billy. which she wasn't. You know.
And I've seen the movie you're just about to talk about.
Yeah. But so all right, I'll give you a sonnet about Billie Holiday, and called "Round Midnight." We all know that Thelonious Monk tune, right? Around midnight.
Well, we
Billie
pretend we
Holiday
will.
never sang this song, and she sang everything like she meant each note and word. She'd open every long syllable and let it break when the sax took over. She'd begin next bar to tell it all. She sang languid, never relaxed, and let midnight reveal just what it knows to lost nightclub souls. Let waitresses sell drinks and their small bodies. She'd start to find that broken lyric heart that never shows itself except in smoky midnight rooms haunted by cracked reeds and down-tempo tunes. If she sang it, they'd go out of their minds.
She was quite the lady, quite a dramatic and dark life in so many ways. And you know, you see the movie and whatever, but you hearing the story of that darkness of dependency on heroin and the abuse in her life, it's amazing. And yet to hear the voice, it transcends like an angel. To be honest, I mean, it's full of the best word I could use would be to me listening to her would be plaintive. That she was, you know, almost crying out with every syllable and every word. Magnificent singer, beautiful, beautiful, and yet painful the whole time.
A friend of mine used to say she didn't have the greatest set of pipes in the world. But and I would fill out yeah, but she knew how to inhabit a song.
Yeah. Without shadow of doubt.
No. I'm distraught because my local jazz station, each morning at 6 a.m., the morning lady DJ would come on and she'd start with Billie. Her first song would always be Billie Holiday, I Hear Music. And that DJ retired.
Oh.
And so, I mean, they have other good DJs on in the morning, but nobody has. I don't get to start the day with Billie Holiday like that.
Yeah, here.
She had that there was a rough quality to her voice. It wasn't, as Mark said, a great voice, but there is that cry, that soulfulness that's in every word. And as Marcus inhabits the song, it isn't the voice, it's her. It's her, it's her soul that you feel when you hear her.
Yeah, there's certainly a fragility to it, anytime heard and expressed. And yeah, I think I would have heard her voice quite a lot initially, and then the story behind it. And when you add the two together, it kind of makes sense that's easy to understand, but beautiful. A lovely poem, Mark.
I'd love to hear her. I'd love if she ever sang Around Midnight, but she never did.
Never did.
She talked about it. She talked about doing it, but she never did. Because I think that would just break your heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I have a poem. I'm not, Lucy, you're still there, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Sitting in the background. That's good. Where's the poem that I picked out for you? Well, this is or it would have been. Where did I put it? Oh, well, give me a second. I'll find it shortly. This is an extract from Patrick Kavanagh, and it's from Terry Flynn, which is a novel. He kind of self-autobiographical novel that he wrote. I'm not sure which. He wrote The Green Fool, which is semi-autobiographical too, and then he wrote Terry Flynn, and he's the central character in Terry Flynn. He talks about his rural background and all the rest, and it's quite witty in many ways. But this is an extract from Terry Flynn, completely designed for September. We did have. Let me just see what day it is. I lost track of weeks and months. Days. Yeah, it was September the 1st today. Quite amazing. And This is the extract. On an apple-ripe September morning, through the mist-chilled fields I went, with a pitchfork in my shoulder, less for use than for devilment. The threshing mill was set up, I knew, in Cassidy's haggard last night, and we owed them a day at the threshing since last year. Oh, it was a delight to be paying bills of laughter and chaffy gossip in kind, with work thrown in to ballast the fantasy-soaring mind. As I crossed the wooden bridge, I wondered, as I looked into the drain, if ever a summer morning should find me shoveling up eels again. And I thought of the wasp's nest in the bank and how I got chased one day, leaving the drag and the scraw knife behind, how I covered my face with hay. The wet leaves of the cock's foot polished my boots as I went round by the glistening bog holes, lost in unthinking joy. I'll be carrying bags today, I mused, the best job at the mill, with plenty of time to talk of our loves as we wait for the bags to fill. Maybe Mary might call round, and then I came to the haggard gate, and I knew as I entered that I had come through fields that were part of no earthly estate. I love that. And to see him walking through the past and the present and that rural setting and the mist. I'm just caught in it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Not quite a beginnings, but it's a beginning. It's a poem for the beginning of September anyway. So it doesn't have a title. It's just an extract from that.
And the way the leaves polished his boots, that's lovely.
Absolutely. As he walked past.
Mm-hmm.
So let's go back to Alla.
I was going to ask you to read that first line. I like it with the apple rich. Is that what that first line?
On an apple ripe September morning. Well, September is generally the traditional month for apple deliveries, as it were. That was when you went to fog the orchards, because that's when the apples are coming to their ripeness.
That's a beautiful line.
Sometimes it would be a little bit earlier, but if you were, where I lived, there were a lot of bitter apples. They call them the Bramley. It was a famous apple, a cooking apple. It was about the size of your fist, I suppose, maybe slightly bigger and sometimes. And I was one of the few youngsters who liked to eat them. I would eat them raw, and that bitter taste. And it wasn't because they hadn't ripened. It was just a bitter taste about them. Brilliant for making apple tarts, because you needed that sourness almost. And I would have eaten them till the day comes home. And they say if you ate too many, you'd have a bad stomach. I don't remember having a bad stomach yet.
That was great. My garden's full of them. I've got bags on the table and bowls. I'm throwing half out and keeping half because the little things get into them. And there's little holes in them. We don't treat them, you say, but they're lovely red. They're lovely red apples, and they're lovely.
But there must be a different breed. They're not the Bramley. The Bramley would be.
No, they're not. They're red and they're very sweet.
Russet. They're russet colour. Yeah, lovely.
We did have crab apples and a massive crab apple tree that we had to cut down when we were doing the extension, and you couldn't have ate them, but you could have made tarts out of them.
All right, or jam, perhaps a crab apple for that.
I used to see the birds eating the crab apple, so I googled it, and apparently, or researched it. I don't even think we had Google then. It was 30 years when we came here, and apparently there's something in the crab apple that's really good for your stomach.
Well, I don't know about the crab apple, but certainly other smaller apples. You would have seen them. You would have seen them fermenting. If somebody didn't pick them for a while, or they fell, and there was an orchard that wasn't used, and they had fermented, and you would see. I'm trying to think. It wasn't the bees. Couldn't have been the bees, but you would have seen the wasps, because it was the last kick of summer. You've seen the wasps flying around, and the wasps were drunk. In what was left behind now. It's amazing.
The fruit, yeah.
But the pub's opened all year round in Ireland anyway.
Weird thing is, I read that poem this morning.
The poem that I'm talking about.
Yeah. I was looking at Kavanaugh for another reason.
All right. Yeah,
And I just happened to read that poem this morning.
there you are.
Not complaining, just
No, that's okay. That's okay.
that's one of those things I find odd when that sort of thing happens.
The serendipity.
I think we have a serendipity of poets today, because
Yeah.
I've also got a poem on a dream. So
we always do, Alan.
yeah, the
No,
serendipity.
we always have something. Your poem one week would just be like mine the next week, and vice versa.
But this is interesting. This I had to write it down because I've had this dream all my life. It's a unfortunately reoccurring dream, and that's what it's called. And I finally wrote it down. Reoccurring dream. It comes again in many forms. A familiar feeling weaves. My reoccurring dream comes and never leaves. Sometimes I'm a little child, lost in a concrete maze. Sometimes I'm a young girl, searching through a haze. The scenery's always changing, but I'm alone and lost, with no chance to find my way. Pain and anxiety, the cost. The city, where I've never been, but I must get to home. I have no street address. I have no money for a phone. I wander in a fairground in search of any friends. I do my best to reach them, but the obstacles never end. I find a phone on a dusty road, and hope burns in my heart, but I have no memory of a number, so my phone call will never start. This feeling of being lost, repeating and repeating, haunting my mind, heart, and soul whenever I am sleeping. And I have had that dream since I was a little girl. And at one point, it bothered me so much, I asked my brother, who was 11 years older than I asked my therapist, and my therapist said, "Oh, no, I don't deal in dreams." I thought, "Oh, great, thank you. Thank you very much." But I turned to my brother and I said to him, since I was only 2 when I was in internment camp, I didn't verbalize anything, and I have amnesia about that time, except for this. And I said to him, "Do you remember, Ted, did I ever get lost in camp and no one could find me?" And he couldn't remember the incident. But I think, since I'm going to be my own therapist, I think that probably somewhere along the line, as a little child, I was lost there in camp with the other 1,000 people who were there and couldn't be found. And it's here somewhere. And every so often it comes back, and it's so, I'll wake up and I'll say to John, "Oh, I had my dream." And he'll say to me, "The one where you can't get a hold of anybody?" And I'll say, "Yes." Because sometimes it's like, I have to call my mother, but I don't have her phone number. I don't know where she is. She's waiting for me. It's a very strong, deep subconscious memory. So now I've got it on paper. Maybe it doesn't have to come back.
There you are. You've
It's my theory.
you've dismissed it with your
I made it real.
one sweep of the pen, and good stuff.
Oh, I don't think you will. You know, I feel it's deeper than you being lost as a little girl. I have a similar one. Mine's from being here, and it's about working in universities and colleges. And trying to get to classes and trying to get along corridors and out of doors, and I'm always late for lectures and students are waiting on me. And even after and I was never late, and even after I've retired, I still have, and it's horrible. And also the phone comes into it. I've tried to ring and I haven't known the numbers, and
I have to say the clock is running on this, largely because I'm going to only because I'm going to charge you for therapy, and my clock is running, because I think what both of you are describing, though I'm not going to be historic and say it's the same dream you had forever. If you're saying it is, Ala, it is. If you're saying it's a regular dream that you have, there are classic kind of dreams that we'll all have around anxiety, and it's a way of that expression of anxiety. My classic one is when I'm in a radio station and the next record won't come on. And what am I going to do? And this record player isn't going to work, and the next one isn't going to work, and I can't push the button, and I'm not going to be able to be on time for the link up to the news and whatever. And it's just clear anxiety. There's no basis. Well, there's a usual basis in reality. You sometimes don't want to fall down or see things not completed, but to me, it's more of a genre and a kind of a. It's just a standard anxiety, and this is how it formulates itself in the scheme of things. It's not really the answer to something that actually happened. But then again, I can't speak for anybody else's dream, but I know sometimes that the anxiety is so intense in them. They happened. They really did happen. That's how intense they are. But that will be $453 each.
What did Carl Jung said? So I can't remember. Mark, you've got the good memory about all of this. Something about the universal consciousness or the universal.
The collective unconscious.
The collective unconscious. Thank you. See, I knew you'd know. The collective unconscious.
Our resident genius.
That's what we're talking about.
I suppose so. Yeah, there's some things that permeate that are universal anxiety. Yeah, but
it says archetypes live in the universe. Yeah. Live in the universe. Universal unconscious that keep coming up, and that's one of the reasons why the gods of mythology retain power, is because they are manifestations, and they're famously when Julius Caesar invaded Gaul and wrote his book about it. He discussed Gaulish Celtic religion by saying, well, who we call Mars, he could instantly relate the gods of another people to the gods because they are manifestations of the archetypes. That was a syncretic religion, but that's another story. But so the things that just kind of exist for everyone. The story of the dead god, the hanged god, which becomes Christianity, is also the story of Tammuz and the story of Adonis and the story of a common story. It's the story of the ghost dance, and the symbols that work for all of us. That was Jung's big popular book was Man and His Symbols.
And then Joseph Campbell kind of took some of those theories and philosophies too into his But the truth is it too. I mean, I forget the word as you used it there, Mark. Synchronicity,
archetypes, synchronicity.
No,
synchronicity is not just his police song.
No. I'm thinking of a word that they use when they different religions as they were coming to older religions.
Syncretic,
syncretic. So they just literally, because St. Patrick was the chief conspirator of that, certainly in Ireland. And they just embraced the gods that were there already and just put the symbolism on from it. So
even the Buddha became a Catholic. Even the Buddha had a Catholic saint's day.
Yeah, because basically
they got him wrong. They just were confused.
Yeah, we're all the same. We all think the same. We all fear the same. Okay, at a different level, and we all have anxieties, and none of us are any different. As a human species, all we want is to be loved and not to be afraid and not to be anxious. And that's it at the end of the day.
How much do we owe you for that insight?
Oh, sorry. We'll call it even.
We'll call it even. Good evening to Christina O'Shaughnessy,
Oh, Christina.
who's joined us. Nice to see you,
Hello, folks.
Christina.
I just joined you now. Sorry,
Yeah.
a bit late.
Good. We missed you. How has your summer been?
Oh,
Pretty boring, basically. Yeah, staying at home, not going anywhere. Very weird. I usually travel a lot, and yeah, doesn't matter where. One can travel in one's imagination, can't one?
Yeah. Well, we were talking about that, and in our dreams as well. That was the way you just joined the conversation. Well, look, good to see you. You have a load of poems written for us, and a song or two to sing tonight.
Absolutely, yes.
I thought so.
As usual.
Yeah, I can read your mind. I can read
Is
your
it
mind.
I can.
it's so lovely to see you, Christina.
Hi, Philomena. Hello.
I was wondering where you were. I'm glad to see you.
And it would be good to see you, Lucy, again if you switched your camera on, but you're very shy tonight.
Sorry, I forgot.
Have we another poem from yourself?
Me? Yeah, it's an old one that I wrote, but yeah. It's called Autumn Song. Standing amid the spoiling leaves, a blackbird whistle sounds, hailing summer's swift retreat from crunchy, leafy mounds. Perched atop a barren branch, a robin shares a tune. The garden, now a wizened mess, where's gone the joy of June? A nightingale sings with sweet cadence while sitting on a faded fence, picking fervently at hardening soil. A raven seeks a feed for toil. In autumn, songs begin to fade. No nests are built, no eggs are laid. Melodies kept to welcome spring and the new life that will bring. There you go.
Lovely, lovely. How long ago did you write that?
I wrote it, and I think I called it Winter Song, but I just renamed it to Autumn. I wrote it when winter was the subject.
I've just rewritten this poem. It's about flowers. I'm going to call it Flowers. I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lovely. Do you know what I love?
When autumn leaves were falling.
Oh, indeed. What is good to see is that some of you, it's like being back at the new day of school. You've all come back with new haircuts, with the exception of myself and Mark, but you all look all lovely. And Lucy, I love the new hairstyle.
Thank you.
Really suits you. Makes you look about 20 years younger.
Thank you.
So now you look about 25. So good for you. Christina, very smart too. The two baldy boys at the back. No, forget about us. But the rest of you cool. So thanks for getting dressed up for the brand new year.
Why does everyone want to appear younger?
I suppose that's true. I'm just glad to appear. That's a fair point.
I'm fine the way I am.
Well played.
Yeah.
Oh, but that was a subjective statement because Donna said it. I just think embrace your age, like you, Christian.
Absolutely.
There's a Freudian undertone there, Donna.
Oh, heaven forbid me, Freudian. Are you joking? No, I kicked Freud out a long time ago. Young, I'd hang on to some of the Jungian principles, but Mr. Freud, he was just setting the course for everybody else. So
I have a button that said "Young at Heart" with a J.
All right, okay,
Young at Heart, yeah.
So let's go round for the last batch. I don't know what time we are tonight. I needn't say we're going to finish early because inevitably when I say that, whatever, as it's the first return to the skedoodle, we'll bring it to an early conclusion because I'm a little tired. I'm also a little tiring, but I'm a little tired. So Mark, sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Who are you going to? Actually, I'm gonna give you two. One shorter, one's a little bit longer, but they're both celebratory. So, just want to give you happy notes here. instead of, I have a nice sonnet about death, but you guys, most of you guys probably do not know this, but the cable cars in San Francisco were not running for the last 18 months, and they started them up again on August 2nd for free all this month, as well, all last month. They're no longer free, but since I'm an old person and I have a fast pass, I'm good.
Yeah.
And so Joni and I went and we rode the cable cars on the first day that they were back, and have ridden them since. But so this called for a hoopty toodle. And this is
a
a hoopty toodle. It's a
Okay.
hoopty toodle occasion. Don't you know? Haven't you read your, Cannery Row, your Sweet Thursday, when you're gonna have a hoopty toodle, you say it's a hoopty toodle. So here's a
Not-
hoopty toodle. This is a cable
Not,
car.
not really. I'm still getting over what they've turned Cannery Row into down in Monterey. It's the biggest disappointment of my
Yes.
trip to
It's
California.
no longer a stink.
It was all metal fabricated nonsense, to be honest. Except maybe with the aquarium, the Monterey Aquarium, which I only saw from the outside. But other than that,
But read the books. Okay.
Yes,
Just,
yes, yes,
okay,
yes.
read the books, and when after in the Sweet Thursday, the follow-up, Doc was told by his critics, he said, if you're gonna write a hoopty toodle, just call it a hoopty toodle. And I have taken that advice to heart. So here's the cable car hoopty toodle. The cars roll, too shiny for fog. She held off the coast and let sun pour bright as Sonoma butter on ringing bells. Tourists like them free. Every local glows, proud of these hills. The short
Give it up for Sonoma County.
Woo-hoo. It's a short hoopty toodle.
Yeah.
And then here's an homage to the great Eugenio Montale, the kind of T.S. Eliot of modern Italian poetry, and to the point that he actually translated T.S. Eliot into Italian, which I'm not sure is worth doing, but he did it. And this is an homage to Montale with an epigraph from him, which I'll just read in English. The golden hours of sunlight pelt their song, and it's patterned after the first poem in his first book. Listen, everyday poets, lemons are trying to teach you just how to sing an almost perfect, just past noon day. Hear the notes reach towards white flowers. Look across blue water. Let blooms almost tickle your ears. Breathe deep as they call back that tea party no one wanted, but someone insisted on. Earl Grey and store-bought scones. You sat outside under pale sun, not this lemony sky. Everyone told travelers tales that weren't true then, but flowed in memory. Now look, see the one sail, white, knifing through blue water. Lemons just above your eyes drip color and scent. That deck calls your name. Go, sail with gods so old, only half their names remain. Sing that.
Doo-doo. Hoop-de-doo-dee-dee. Number two. I can just feel the sun there. You brightened up my whole day, and it's even more impressive because it's dark here now. So
That's a calendar poem that was written for a calendar that a friend of mine illustrated, and that's starting from her illustration. So that's the flower calendar that'll be coming out next year.
Okay, and was that for a particular month? This month of September?
That was I want to say September.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
I think it was September, and it just got accepted for publication yesterday.
Cool.
Oh,
Yeah.
So let's go around the room again. Then, Alla, a poem from yourself.
Well, I have one that's just fun. Let's put it that way. I was thinking of one of my favorite poems that I was reading. I had read to my granddaughter, and then I thought I'd do my own, my own little sweet version. And I'm sure you recognize it. It's called Lady Fair. The lady, beautiful and fair, asked the universe to hear her prayer. A last love was her one request. A last love was her only quest. The fates laughed at human love, at foolish prayers sent above. They knew love was a losing game, but humans played it just the same. The man came suddenly into view. The lady thought her answer true. He seemed an honest, faithful knight who loved her with a burning light. She gave her innocent heart away, just like a heroine in a play. He said he'd love her to the end, then left her broken heart to mend.
Man, I say honestly, man, who needs them? Oh,
Please.
When I was reading, the poem I was reading to my granddaughter was The Lady of Shalott.
the Lady of Shalott. Yeah, there you go. Yep, men and women. So confusing, isn't it? So confusing.
And
Thank
in
you.
between, I live in San Francisco.
Yeah,
And in between.
yeah, and in between, and whatever takes your fancy. Let's go to yourself, Lucy, with a wee poem.
Oh, I don't know if I have another one. Give me just a
We'll
moment.
tell you, we'll go to
Yeah.
Philomena.
I probably have some, but I've got A's book. It's an old copy that I love. And in yoga, what I do sometimes at the end of a class is I just open at something and it just seems to be so appropriate for the theme and everything else. So I'm just going to open at any A poem and read it.
So just quickly to say, George Russell, AE, born in Lurgan, 18, whenever, 67. Just to give people who are watching who may never have heard of George Russell.
Oh, goodness. How could you not have heard of George Russell?
Well, if you don't live in Lurgan and you don't know Jim Conway, you might not have.
Yeah, the mystic, the artist, and everything in between. This one's called Tragedies. Strange one to open up, but anyway, must be a reason. Tragedy. This of all fates would be the saddest end. That heroic fever with its cry, from children unto mother, here am I, should lose the very faith it would defend. That the high soul through passion should descend to work the evil it had willed must die. If it would once so, would that be victory, that tragic close? O hearken, foe or friend, love the magician and the wizard hate. The one be like white fire and one dark flame, work the same miracle, and all are wrought into the image that they contemplate. None ever hated in the world but came to every basement of the foe he fought. That's a very deep one. I'm trying to think, is that about, we've all got the darkness and the light in us, and hopefully that the light descends rather than the darkness. Anyone else?
Well, you might be an always. Why did Cain murder his brother? Because he was able.
Ah.
That was awful, wasn't it?
Well, yes, and well aged.
And well aged, yeah. older than the Bible itself, actually, yeah. A few years.
Because he was not a man as in male. I mean, man. I mean, when I say man, I mean man as in woman. Man it could be either. Because he was of the human race.
Oh no, we're not going into discuss biblical things. Largely because
you've hit the nail on the head. That's what he was trying to say. Whatever we bring down,
absolutely. That's what I took from it. Whatever you bring up in this little nonce here, comes to live out further afield. That's part of it. That's what I took from it. But I still don't really want to discuss biblical things, because I still trying to get my head around, and God created man and God created woman, and then 10 years later they wandered off into another district and got married to somebody else. Now, how did that come about? Anyway,
Well, is there a line in that poem, Philomena, that says something about love descends into sin?
Yeah, hang on a minute.
Is that the tragedy? I mean,
Love the magician and the wizard hate. It's a bit like Kilbrain, and a bit like the prophet. Love and hate are bad partners.
okay.
Is that what you mean?
I thought I heard the word sin, and I'm trying, I was trying to figure out where he was.
Well, that's I'm going.
I think we'd have a better chance of deciphering your dream, Ala, to be honest.
Do you know what I'll do? Yeah, that's a very deep one. Do you know what I'll do? Well, I'll photograph it and put it on, and we can all write our little thoughts on it.
We can have a 3-hour discussion about it next week, but not necessarily on this Zoom. Lucy, we're going to go to yourself, and then Christina for a few words, if only just to tell us how she has her hair looking so beautiful tonight.
Okay. Okay, this one is by, I didn't read this already, did I? William Wordsworth, September 1819, this time. Departing summer hath assumed an aspect tenderly illumed, the gentlest look of
Can
spring.
I ask you to read the first line of that again? Because I think that could be the first official mention of the word Zoom. Maybe I misheard.
No, assumed.
Oh, okay. I thought he was on.
We could make it zoomed. Yes,
yeah.
departing.
So
let's change this a little.
No. So let's start again, just to bow to
William Wordsworth, September 1819. Departing summer hath assumed an aspect tenderly illumed, the gentlest look of spring that calls from yonder leafy shade, unfaded, yet prepared to fade, a timely carolling. No faint and hesitating trill, such tribute as to winter chill the lonely redbreast pays. Clear, loud, and lively is the din from social warblers gathering in their harvest of sweet lays. That's it.
Good.
It's got a future.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure. If I was him, I'd change my name. Wordsworth would never catch on, I don't think.
That's a good play on words for you, John. Assumed.
Assumed, yeah. We could rewrite that poem.
Double any day. Yeah.
See me, I hear what I need to hear. That's the usual way. I'm going to finish with a poem, but I'm going to ask you folks to think as to what next week's subject might be. Okay, not just this second, but as we complete the poem, and as we let's continue in the vein of deep seriousness of philosophical questions from the Bible. Let's read another Patrick Kavanagh poem, and this is called Care's Ass, which is referring to Care's donkey, if you like, just not to confuse yourselves. Care's Ass. We borrowed the loan of Care's ass to go to Dundalk with butter, brought him home the evening before the market, and exiled that night in mucker. We heeled up the cart before the door. We took the harness inside, the straw-stuffed straddle, the broken breeching, with bits of bull wire tied. The winkers that had no choke hand band, the collar and the reins. In Ealing, Broadway, London town, I name their several names. Until a word comes to life, morning, the silent bog, and the god of imagination walking in a mucker fog. I didn't mispronounce the word mucker. It's a townland from which it was born, in the townland near the town of Inniskeen, and mucker is most certainly a direct translation for the Irish word muck, which means pig. So it was the land of the pigs. So there you are, pigs and asses. Yeah.
So close, so close.
What was the name of the lady or the person at the start of the name of the poem, Donna?
Ker's ass.
Cars.
Kerr.
Oh,
Ker's ass.
of course.
So they were a family that would have lived near
Oh,
the
so
cabin in
that's the
Inniskeen.
surname, yeah. Okay.
Kerrs. And the Kerrs turn up in a number of his poems. I think the one about the bicycles going down by two Inniskeen Road on a summer evening, and a few of the other poems. So Mucker turns up. And what's that? What's that, Mark? Is Mark frozen? Oh, Mark. Oh no, you're there. You're there, Mark.
I'm there.
I didn't hear what you said actually. So
you were frozen.
Oh right, okay. Okay. I was frozen. I was as cold as Kerr's. No, maybe not. So who has an idea of what subject we might have for next week? Spit them out. Spit them out. Anyone any ideas? Oh, you're full of life and excitement. Who has an idea of what they'd like to write a poem about?
No. Just keeping things every day. Ordinary. Make magic out of the ordinary.
Okay, ordinary thing.
Ordinary thing. The subject has been chosen. The gauntlet has now
So much
been laid
depends
down.
upon a red wheelbarrow streaked with rainwater beside the white chickens. So that one's taken.
Oh, okay. And who's that by for the uninformed?
Big Billy Williams.
William
Carlos Williams.
Okay,
I'm actually 1 degree of separation from him because I knew a guy he was a pediatrician, William Carlos Williams, was a doctor, and I knew a friend of mine was one of his patients as a little boy, growing up in Paterson, New Jersey.
There you go. There you go. I knew a second cousin who was married into the Kerrs of Inniskeen, who owned the ass. So there you go. That's amazing, isn't it?
And then probably moved to Torrance, California, where I knew Robert Kerr. So there was one of my Cub Scout troop.
So the ordinary. We'll use that as broadly as you wish. That can be just making the ordinary everyday thing important, or can be extraordinary, whatever you think the word ordinary conveys. Is that you happy enough with that?
Ordinary time, ordinary bars.
Yeah, you can use it with one. So everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Good. We all have our homework now. None of us will do it, of course, but some of us might. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, Christina. Albeit a little bit later. We hope to see you at the right kind of time next week, or not, whenever you turn in. It's good. Lucy, good to see you again. Good to see a big smile on your face there. And good to see yourself, Mark.
Yes.
And Philomena. Good luck with the yoga. Philomena, starting soon, is it?
Starts next Wednesday, so I might just dip in and out, Donna. Sometimes I'm a bit tired after the yoga, and then I've got the other thing as well, and the history whisperer as well. So.
Oh yes, you're doing that. You're doing that where, at a university or a
St. George's Hall, Liverpool.
Wow, that's a fantastic place. You showed me the photographs of that.
I can't believe it. Honestly, I can't believe it. There was hundreds went, and she ended up choosing about 10 of us. Yeah.
Well, this is to do an oral history with people. Is that your intention?
I'm not sure. She's not even sure herself what the role is. It's a new visitor centre, to go around the St. George's Hall was made 17th century by a young London architect, got the job to design it. He was 25, and he did a beautiful ballroom, but at the bottom of it, he did the courts, and it incorporated the courts, the law courts, because they were moving and they'd nowhere to move them. So basically you've got the courts and you've got the cells and the whole history of that. And you do pick up when you go in, it's a bit weird when you go down that basement to where all the convicts and all the people would have been kept before they went on trial. So the last ever woman she wasn't hanged, but she was very wrongly accused of giving her husband, she spent years in prison, trying to think of her name. And she was wrongly accused of giving her husband morphine, and he died. And they realized afterwards that he took morphine for years for medicinal purposes. So basically he killed himself.
And this was all in Liverpool City, the centre of Liverpool.
It was in
It's
Liverpool.
a beautiful building, from what you showed me. Magnificent.
There's a lot of beautiful architecture in Liverpool, really, really amazing. I mean, every time I go over, I never stop being dumbfounded by the whole thing. And when I came from Lurgan to Liverpool, I missed home so much, but when I looked around at all the architecture and that, and when you look now, they've just put up a new Lidl not far from us. It went up in a few weeks. It's like a tin box. And when we think of all the gorgeous shops and stores that are closing down, like John Lewis, George Henry Lee's, House of Fraser, and the architecture that that went into them. And now
I think similar things have happened in Belfast over the years too.
Yeah,
those
probably.
big stores have had their day, but the architecture that was with them is lost. It's rather sad. Next week in across Europe is European Heritage Week. And they have a series of talks. We're hoping to talk a wee bit about what things are like in Southern Ireland anyway, and how we could improve that focus on regenerating the new or the older places and looking after our town centres in particular. It's a tough battle, but it's a one worth fighting for, and just a reassessment of that. Liverpool had the City of Heritage, or the what was it called, European Capital of Culture.
Yeah.
And here it's not quite hot off the presses, but in the last 4 weeks it's been announced that there are about 40 applicants for next one for 2025, and one of them is the city or area of Armagh, Craigavon, Armagh, Banbridge and Craigavon. So they're in 1 in 40 chance of getting it. Armagh leads the way in that Georgian city. It'd be fabulous if it was maintained, but there'll be a little bit of throwback to us if we get the part of that under that umbrella. I'd say it's pretty unlikely, but at least they're putting it out there. But interesting.
Do you know, Don, I'm ashamed to say I've never been to Armagh and the cathedral. No.
It's a magnificent city. It's a magnificent Georgian city.
Yeah, it's first on my list when I go home. Can't wait.
Absolutely. Well, folks, let's move to the conclusion. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you for being around longer than you've started to be longer than usual for quite a long time. So it's quite usual now. Much appreciated. Alla, always as ever, glorious to see you, and good luck and continue good luck with the book. Hope it's going well. And Philomena, best of luck with your week. Christina, best of luck with your week, whether that's in Switzerland or on the border with France or whatever it might be. And Lucy, the best to Carlingford and all surrounding areas, and the bush in particular.
And Donna, best of luck with your week.
And you.
Thank you very much. So I'll call this meeting to an end. And for those watching on Facebook and watching the replay, thanks for your time. And keep poeting, if there is such a verb.